Mr. Dufresne, on March the 7th, I wrote you a letter asking you to undertake another investigation into the government's arrivecan app. So in light of the new information related to the handling and security of Canadians' data, can you provide the committee with an update to your ongoing investigation into arrivecan?
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. Indeed, following your letter on March 19th, I announced that I will be investigating allegations of privacy concerns following a complaint against the Canada Border Services Agency related to the development of the arrivecan mobile app. The investigation will examine contracting practices related to arrivecan and, more specifically, the measures that were in place to protect personal information during the development of the app, to assess compliance with the Privacy Act, which applies to federal departments and agencies. And so the investigation is ongoing. Under the Privacy Act, I have to maintain confidential the details of that investigation while it is ongoing, but certainly look forward to completing it and to making the findings public once that is done.
Understanding that the Privacy Commissioner has obligations to respect privacy, I will ask you a series of questions, and if you're able to provide us with an update or further information, I'd appreciate it. But first of all, do you have an expected date of completion when we'd be able to see your findings?
I do not. We work to complete them in as timely a manner as possible, but of course we seek answers and submissions and we consider them, but we will be working to complete this as quickly as we can.
Have you been able to obtain all of the documents necessary from the government and contractors that you've sought?
I don't have concerns to raise on that front. There are powers under the Act that would allow me to obtain information if I needed it.
Are you investigating a potential breach of Section 7 of the Privacy Act, which states that personal information under the control of government institution shall not, without the consent of the individual to whom it relates, be used by the institution except for the purpose for which the information was obtained?
We are examining the contracting practices. We're examining the measures in place to protect the personal information during the development of that app, and we're going to be assessing the compliance with the Privacy Act provisions. And if we see concerns there, we're going to raise those and flag those.
So not able to say specifically which sections of the Act, like whether or not Section 8 of the Privacy Act, which states personal information under the control of a government institution shall not, without the consent of the individual for whom it relates, be disclosed by the institution except in accordance with its section. So Section 7, Section 8, you can't specify which.
My announcement of that investigation has not restricted specific provisions of the Act or otherwise. We said we are looking for compliance with Privacy Act, and if we identify concerns there, we'll raise them.
Okay. The Auditor General's report on arrivecan made it clear that the record keeping done by the government was really so poor that the Auditor General wasn't able to precisely attribute a cost to arrivecan, saying that she thought it was she thought that it was $60 million.
Probably more.
Are you finding that to be the case in your efforts?
Well, these would be some of the comments and observation that we would make in the final report of our investigation, as was done by the AG in hers. So this is not something that I would be commenting on at this stage. It would be once the investigation is over.
Fair enough.
So I'm interested to know whether or not you've interviewed government officials and contractors and people whose security clearance was unable to be accounted for. So if you can speak to that, I'd appreciate it. But can you take us through what an interview would look like from your office, irrespective of whom you're interviewing?
Well, in our investigation process, we will identify with the departments the issues that we're looking into. We're going to ask them questions. We're going to ask them for documentations, and we're going to look to see if their practices are compliant with the elements in terms of the use, the collection, the disclosure, the safeguards. And as it moves forward, we may have additional questions. We may follow up on that. We prepare a draft report of finding. We share with them. We give them the opportunity to comment. So this will be underway, but these are not elements of information that I would be making public until the investigation has been concluded.
That's fair.
So with an app like ArriveCan that was mandatory for use for travelers, and for some people, travel is required for their employment, to access medical services, but also just as part of their rights as Canadians to travel freely. The use of the app was mandatory, and the collection of data was mandatory. They had to surrender their personal information. What would the consequences be should you find that CBSA or that the government broke the law, broke the Privacy Act?
Right. Well, one of the areas in the Privacy Act that I would hope to see changed in future modernization of the Act is that I do not currently have the ability to make orders, binding legal orders vis-a-vis a department of the government. So I would make recommendations. I would identify if there are shortcomings. I would identify it and make recommendations. So that's what my report would do, assuming that there is a violation.
Okay.